Hi, this is Guardian Zoodalore, and this is week 2 since my job application at Riot Games as game designer for the LifePod Team 2. Let's briefly set out the issues unveiled in part 1 of this series. The lane swap Gambit counterplay is uncompelling. The team who drafted it for a 2v2 needs to guess where the enemies will send 2 players, or respond accordingly. A coordinated lane swap is the optimal strategy in League of Legends. Thirdly, the best counter to the lane swap Gambit is for you yourself to draft a lane swapping comp, thereby pro-jailing champs that excel at this task. As a whole, these contribute to uncompelling gameplay and severely limit champion viability on the pro scene. I conclude part 1 with the following idea. Would League of Legends not be better with lane swap Gambit being viable on occasion, 5 to 10%, competing with standard play of 1-1-1-2 and 2-1-2? Okay, now that introductions are out of the way, I would like to share with you a clip of the man, the legend, August, who inspired me to apply at Riot Games.
Story way back in the early days of League of Legends, Flash was OP and it was taking Flash, and there's a conversation between designers about removing it. It was just like, hey, this is too OP, there's no way to really balance it, there's no way to balance the spell, so it needs to be removed so that there's real choices in the summoner spell system so that not everybody just has Flash. And there was a designer at the time, a designer who made Lux, who just asked a very good question, and the question she asked was like, hey, well, is the game not better with Flash? We're talking about removing it for all these reasons, these design reasons, choice in summoner spells, make sure not everybody has a dash, all those things. But let's ask the opposite question of, well, in a world where there's less choice in summoner spells and everybody has this dash, is the game better when everybody has this flashy, dashy thing? The answer that was come to was yes, the game is significantly better and more enjoyable. And so while Flash does compete against things like summoner spells choice, and it does compete against things like a character like Twitch never having a dash, the other end of that thing is good for the game. The game is just more fun, more exciting, more enjoyable with Flash in it.
In the spirit of the previous video, I dare to ask, instead of pursuing the current strategy of penalizing creativity, can we simply reward stability? So, I am so happy that part 1 compiled. It just did. I'm relieved. I can really go off on tangents now. It doesn't need to be structured and to do this analysis of like what's going on, understanding the problem. This can just be really like the game design part of the game. Like testing is always a part of it. There's always the discovery of what the actual source of the problem is. It's a big one. That was all about part 1. But now I can actually go a little more off the cuff and shoot just ideas, brainstorm, and let's like solve the problem. So how can we, instead of like putting these mechanics that punish the team that do swap with like these mechanics happening top, can we just not reward bot side, the team that wants to have the 2v2? Oh, and also, yeah, so I'm going to be just having you guys watch a Word document this entire time because, it is so time consuming to get a video done correctly. My hat's off to every creator out there. That is a job. Learning that in a week was quite tough too. In any case, I really want to work at Riot, so here we go. So how can we mitigate the guessing game? So that was part 1 of the problems that I previously identified. We reward the team that desires the 2v2 to always go bot side. That was my idea. So the enemy team can choose to still swap, but they will be gifting a reward to the enemy team. So I'm thinking the reward will be located in the bot alcove to make an area more compelling. I mean, it's not being used much. I think that's a fine place to put it. How can we reliably incentivize teams to play a standard game? Well, the reward being gifted to the team that opts for a standard game. You could, I'll get more to that, but the reward must be sufficient to limit lane swapping to a maximum of 10% incidence, but not 0. By this, I'm just going off of that. You see part 1, you see where you get both numbers from the post and from Freak. As of 10, as a stifle player creativity. This mechanic must trigger situationally, such as if a team is severely outdrafted and is now opting into the lesser of 2 evils. That's a meaningful choice. I'm okay that this happens. Pros have found an innovative alternative solution which generates compelling action deemed healthy for the game. Yeah, if pros cook and they do something cool, and us at Riot are be like, oh no, sorry, I'm not part of the team. But like Riot believes that this isn't cool and healthy for the game, or the pro scene or the player base likes it, yeah, keep it in the game. But if you get player responses that no, this is overbearing, and it might just be cool for and then lose like a fad, right? It's cool for now, but then it's not that. Anyway, people let them cook, and that's okay. If they do discover something toxic, then you patch that out. So we want it to lead to the intended lane phase, not AEAB, all early, all bots. I don't want to see a 5v5 bot because I'm creating this reward that's so tantalizing that you just go there no matter what. It shouldn't, it shouldn't redefine the meta to something new. We fell in love with 1112. The system must be built with levers that can scale over time, capable of change, as a way of adapting with meta shifts and future game design. So what other levers could this reward system have? So right now I'm thinking you can either increase or decrease the potency of the reward. You can add secondary benefits which account for exploits, so like conditional. You could have it so that both teams get the buff. If they like both opt into a standard game, they both get a buff because that's just a cool thing to have in the game. You could have only a single team get a single team gets a debuff. But that's like the current implementation that Riot's going for. I don't like the fact that you're like nerfing the team that takes the Gambit, that starts the Gambit. I don't like this. I much rather that you just buff the team that just plays standard. Change the level of toxicity from mild to spicy. So this is, it goes back to this. Ideally, the reward will scale correlate to the toxicity of the source. So if the lane swaps are deemed 9 out of 10, these shouldn't exist. The power budget that can be granted to the dev team is fairly large and actually represents an excellent opportunity to add a powerful and popular game-changing mechanic to the game, right? If Riot hates it, they can go and have creative liberty to do something epic to balance the scales, right? So I think that, so this is just where it is. But like maybe we get to a point where I mentioned Ivern. That game was so memorable for me. The first time I played against an Ivern Rengar bot side as a DC at high elo. No, that's definitely, this was a D4. That was something for me. That was my Alistair did not like me. I was just playing under turret. We were not on the same page. We lost the game. It was so interesting and compelling for me. But so if we don't want that in part of the game, well, you just change that from mild to spicy, right? That's too spicy, so that just means, well, we need to buff the reward. I don't know. Like the objective I'm putting bot side in the alcove could just grant vision, like a watchtower in StarCraft, right? In that case, so it's that you always see the Rengar. You actually have full vision bot side. You're playing with that disadvantage for the entire game. Well, like that's an example of a specific reward on top of the rest that just goes to counter a specific mechanic that we just don't want to see in the game. Now, I'm of the opinion that that's like overreaching and whatever, but for now, this is just a system design of how we would go about just balancing in the future now, systems in general. So ideally, the reward promotes diversity in compelling gameplay. Yeah, I want champion diversity is great. So that's where I'm saying that for me right now, player base will tell us, but it ultimately comes down to what's healthiest for the game. And an Ivern Rengar bot in pro play could be really interesting, right? Will it happen? Well, as it stands right now, I don't think we've ever seen it. But I'm not a historian. I don't know. So ideally, you scale the reward for the toxicity. I just talked about that. So in more general housekeeping, I created a viability analysis document, like an exploit analysis, just to be able to evaluate if whatever solution I come up with is somewhat relevant. And then there'd be like other criteria that Riot have that I don't know about because I'm not part of the team. So if the following is just something that I came up with and I developed. Riot would have these much more elaborate Word documents or their Jira or whatever software they're using, platforms, these templates that qualify requirements that maybe some of mine, I got maybe like one out of the 30 that like don't belong on theirs, and maybe that one's cool because I do have some ideas. But overall, that wouldn't even be worth changing with the standard the standard cycle is. Like, no, you just follow what Riot has. But for now, I don't have access to that, so I created a makeshift one. So not only does my solution need to take account for the entire reward requirements that I set forth here, but it also needs to pass certain tests. So, okay, what could the potential candidates for the reward be? Well, this is where I get to dream, and this is fun. So my original thought, when I first thought about the problems with Lane Swaps, was, okay, how can we reward a team? It's like, well, what if teams could pick Dragon Soul? Like, no. What if we could optimize Dragon Soul? So like you write an algorithm that can scan for like what's optimal for you, but then offset by like what's optimal for them. And this is way too clunky. That is my first idea, okay? But what I got from that was I liked the fact that it was like Drake skewed, because it fits the fantasy that bot side typically, originally when it was done 1-1-1-2, the reason you had 2 bot was because there was only a Drake, there wasn't grubs, there wasn't Rift Herald objective top. Top was an island, right? So I think that it fits the fantasy. So I'm okay with the fact that the Drake is. But if you look at Drake win rates, I mean, there is a difference. It could have an impact, but it would also lead to like this uncompelling game play where everybody would just choose the optimal Drake, right? If Cloud Soul is the best and you're guaranteed to get it, everybody would pick it. So I don't think it's like compelling enough, but the theme I like. So we'll get back to the theme later on because that's the solution I fell on. How about we give the team that doesn't swap, that just chooses to play standard, a single feat? And that I'm looking is like, well, if Whippo from the previous video mentioned it'd be worth like 400 gold. I mean, I don't think that this is worth that much. So Freak even admitted in his last video that the win rate was worse for everybody that did opt into the tier 3 boots. Like, it was a waste of money. There was, for me as ADC, as ADCMF specifically, like there was a specific time where if you ever were at a game-ending play, like you're getting sieged at the fountain, you have about 1,200 gold. You can't really sell your boots to get a guardian angel or something, and you can't. So you're forced to eat the pot, and then drink the pot, rather, and then probably upgrade your boots, because that's the best thing you can do with like your 1,300 gold. Because this is the end-all be-all fight that's going to decide the game. Might as well have as much stats. So it's like the only time that the boots were somewhat viable, in my opinion. But this is the perspective from like a high emerald player. So what do I know, really? But so I was like, anyway, didn't really opt into the boots, and I don't think it's compelling. I don't think pros will find this compelling either. So let's keep looking though, because feats is a new mechanic. Let's see if we can make it fit. So what about empowered feats? Okay, what would empowered feats be? Boots upgrade cost 0 gold. Okay, well now we're just objectively giving 2,500 gold to the enemy team. That is a very powerful lever. We're giving a component to the team that did pick like a tempo comp because they want to hit the 2v2 hard. They don't want to scale as much. So it would help them, but I'm afraid that this is like way too powerful. So, but thinking about it, if we could explore it, with the recent grub change, I fear that the most compelling part of feats for me was that in every elo I played, because I play with my family, which are bronzies, and I play on this account where I'm silver, learning to jungle, because I feel like getting that perspective to higher elo, like high emerald or diamond, would be very compelling for this job posting. So I'm working on that account right now. And then I was actually gold for nine seasons. Oh no, gold for 2 and silver for 9. Like I did not focus on the game until like last winter, where I just said, well, what if I actually pay attention for once and not just playing this casually, and I try to just see what I can do. And I got to Emerald 1, 50 LP. That was my peak. So the majority of my time spent with League was in these lower brackets. And what I thought was really cool is that regardless on which account I played, at all of those elos, I could call in chat and say, Rift Herald decides feats, because they have 3 kills, we have first turret. Rift is the next to spawn because Drake was delayed. This decides feats. And what would I get? 5 people would group almost every time. So there's people valued that, or they wanted to opt into the fight, or there was a meaningful impact. And I'm afraid that how with the grubbies, you're never going to have that tie situation happen as much. But imagine if, in that sense, what you could do is if you get to a point where I'd say 3 kills first turret and you got 2 objectives and the other team has nothing, your boots cost 750 because you're snowballing, right? You basically don't get the tier 3 boots at a viable rate. You'll get an extremely late game. If it goes extremely long, you still have an advantage. But otherwise, you don't get it. But if it's really close and it's really nice and tight, that feat battle is going to decide an impact of like 2,500 gold swing. Now, that might actually be way too strong. You might actually want to just make the boots upgrade to be 250. But like for some build path or some champions like Misfortune, who I main, you don't necessarily even buy boots. It would change her build path to actually make the boots proposition be even more interesting. Or like in Cassiopeia, like it affects champions. But the fact that you make it so that the advantage you get is based on that bounty system of how the gold is currently shifting, and you include that the feats is another meaningful objective that balances. That the strength of it, the buff. And now here I digress, right? I think you guys understand what I'm talking about. And I think that would be an interesting thing. And I think that here the problem with this kind of solution or rework is just, well, it doesn't really fit the narrative. It's not a compelling reward. It's a system that already exists that can be implemented if Riot believes that this was interesting, that they could be compelled to balance it and make it in part of the game. I think it's relevant, but not thematically correct. And this could be used for something else. So next person, if I'm going clockwise here. So Ornn items are purchasable by your team. Okay, so again, here I'm talking about an epic gold swing that the rewards. Again, this is in the context that the enemy team choose to do the lane swap gambit. You just force the 2 to go put 2 bot. What you get in return? Or an upgradable items. Oh, well. Yeah, okay, so like I said, lots of gold. I think he would make more sense thematically top. Like in the future, like this, I'm proposing a system overall that can account for like these other mechanics and these other problems that are going to pop up in League of Legends with AI and everything. People are going to actually start cooking more. And we need to have access to these additional levers. And the way I saw Ornn top was, imagine in like a Warcraft 3-esque type where you were just running down the map and then you found a random merchant. And that was cool. At least I thought so as a child. So you have Ornn stuck in some rubble, top lane alcove this time. And he comes out at whatever time we need him to come out to balance whatever problem is happening. But you can maybe trigger it sooner by like smiting him. So you trade off using your smite to be able to get access to the shop, to be able to upgrade an item, to be then able to pull, like, because that's cooking. And then everybody in the game, like if this was a neutral Ornn, everybody in the game can go topside in an alcove at one point when they find that there's a lull state or just some dead time. And then you get the item, and then you go back on your way, do whatever. In a situation where a team was granted the reward, he comes out of the rubble, he ults, and he rides his horn like the goat all the way to your nexus, and he stands on the opposite side of the shopkeeper. So basically you have Ornn upgrades in your base now. So that means A, the enemy team can't have it. B, you don't have to change your gameplay and your risk. So this would be a very powerful reward, and one that like could eliminate something that's very critical in the game. But it is a very interesting one. And then you could add like even other Easter eggs, like because Ornn is a top laner. If you look at the win rates, he's not played support really right now. You could balance for it, but the majority of the player base want to play him top. And what you do is you have, well, if the brother's out, or yeah, this other shop, right? If let's call it Orn's brother, and he comes out, you ult as Orn. You're calling your red one, and there's a blue one coming too from your brother. And he's gonna have a different timing than yours because yours is starting based on your position. His is starting from your position and his position, so it's gonna be an extended one coming in. So you could have two ults in trade, and that might be game breaking, right? And it might add 2 points of win rate to Ornn top. Would people want to play Ornn more top? I think so. Is that healthy for the game that Ornn items are in the game more often? We could argue too. So how would the passives interact here? Well, he could upgrade 2 items, right? You would still get your Ornn upgrade, but you can, as a player, choose one. So I could get upgraded IE and upgraded Bloodthirster on my ADC. So here, I think like it's something compelling, but again, it's something that should be done for top side, not for to fix a problem that's a bot problem right now. I left a spot here for Riot. I mean, like, hey, if you guys can come up with these ideas, you've got a bunch of creative people out there that work at Riot too. So just be creative. Let me know what you guys think. Like, what can we do? But because there's always the ability to like balance, like I'd said previously with that vision. So whatever reward we do also grants vision, like a watchtower, an epic scuttle crab, right? You put a bird on top. And that would work to solve that. And you could do things like, okay, you've got enemy wards get periodically discovered by agents. So you've got these crows, that's like the Swain. That was more like the Noxus theme, that if you put a ward near them, they can fly and they can flag it, just ping it that there's a ward here. To kill it would be too strong, but to just tell you that there's a ward there. And that's very strong. Like, it's a pro-skewed balance because vision is so valued by pro players. Fog of War is problematic. But it doesn't necessarily fit the theme. Maybe it's too strong. You could do something like the Watchtower grants XP to players around. So that way, like, you guys are getting more ahead. So if they opt to go and keep sieging, then you guys just keep getting XP and just funneling. So you funneling XP into you. And then once it's different, that's an idea. But to go back to the final decision, which is why I made this video. So after thinking about just like this, oh, I got this, I got this, I got this. What else can I do here? And I thought, well, would it be fun and compelling that if a team lane swaps and I play the standard game, as the standard player, I am rewarded with Dragon's Reckoning. All right, so now let's go talk about Dragon's Reckoning. Hi, this is Guardian Zoodalore from the future, and after recording the following section of what's to come, I've realized that it's much more technical and theoretical than what this part of the video was all about, to simply dream. So I've taken the creative liberty of splitting this into a third part for those who are interested in the nitty-gritty. It will most likely not appeal to the masses, as it is me myself theory crafting, where a team should instead be collaborating on an implementation strategy. I'm also crafting in Fog of War, not knowing the inner workings at Riot. So many takes might be off simply because I'm misinformed about company policies, or I misinterpret a challenger play, the reason behind that, because I am not a challenger player myself. So for those who want to know more about Dragon's Reckoning or my take on it, go see part 3. But if you guys can share this series to anybody who works at Riot, maybe my job application could be reconsidered and my dream could come true. I will be forever grateful for the opportunity to find work within the League community. Riot, if you're watching, I'm still job hunting.